It's Morning in America. Welcome back. We are delighted. I need this guy right now. You may have to send me a bill. Dr. Michael Welner, chairman of the Forensic Panel, one of America's leading forensic psychiatrists. Welcome back, Dr. Welner.
Good to talk to you. I'm always struck by this lead-in music. I feel like I'm coming in out of the bullpen.
Well, no, you're the starting pitcher. Believe me, you're the guy we count on. All right, I wanted you to talk wholesale, but you may need to speak to me first, retail. I feel like Lear on the Heath, ranting. We want to talk solutions. You were very good on Fox, and we heard you, and I want you to address this. Here's my problem. The denunciations of Trump are louder than the denunciations of San Bernardino. I don't think his policy is workable. But I see what people get worked up on, and I didn't see them getting as worked up on San Bernardino. I want to talk about the American psyche. Are we more interested in political correctness, on not being called a bigot, than we are in preserving our own skin?
Well, I think people are naturally interested in preserving their own skin. It's just that any relationship to the risk that one faces is quickly whitewashed in how not only these events are portrayed by our government, but the government instruction, and specifically from the presidency, of telling us how we're supposed to think about them and how we're supposed to react to our surroundings. So it creates something quite artificial, but what it does is it's by design to suppress a natural human reaction of fear. Anybody should have a natural reaction of fear that they could be in as unguarded a venue as a holiday party, and someone that they'd been perfectly civil to would turn around and mow them down for want of criminal and ideological, religious, really, indulgence.
Okay, that's it. Yeah, you nailed it. What do we do? How do we do we change the American mind? That is this going to require a 12-step, a 10-step, a some step to change the American mind? Are we not fearful enough? Some people are. I mean, I assume this is why Trump rises in the polls whenever he says this stuff, because people are saying, he gets it. The other guys don't get it. You may not agree with his policy proposals, but he gets what I'm feeling, right?
I think what many folks are missing, and I have a huge appreciation of Trump for doing this, is that he flipped the paradigm to where it should be. The paradigm coming out of the event itself, as you recall from just a discussion of Fox, is this workplace violence, and that was a completely ridiculous idea on the order of Benghazi was caused by a video, and the natural inclination of the government to lie to us, and without hesitation, goes all the way back to Fort Hood, to basically say, don't believe what you see. This is something else, when obviously it's not that. So I think, just as a general rule, we've got to get out of a current American dialogue, which is founded on lies. There are 5 fundamental points that get pushed constantly that are essentially untruths, and as soon as you or any other of the listeners of this, this very provocative and challenging broadcast would think, as soon as you hear this, then you should think someone's not being straight with us. First of all, the idea that this is not Islam. It is Islam. There are many Muslims who feel uncomfortable with what's happening, but this is happening in the name of Islam. Secondly, that this is a small minority. This was such a small, infinitesimal minority of people who felt this way. How is it that they are able to control entire tracts of land and to govern over them in the Middle East? How is it that you can have these no-go zones in Europe? How is it that they can essentially dominate the political discourse in the United States if it's such an infinitesimal minority? It's the third point being that in some way that it's America's fault. Our fault is that we exist such as we do. That's the only thing that we do wrong. America is a force for good. It's a force for good within the Muslim world, but it is a mythology of distortion that in some way America brings it on upon itself, because we don't control the media that these folks use to demonize the United States, and we never will. we have to give up the idea that we can somehow undistort what people are distorting, and we have to embrace the realities that we are not responsible for this. We can't blame ourselves anymore for why this is happening. And then secondly, the idea that we're not at war. We may not feel that we're at war with Islam, but there are many Muslims who are at war with us. So we have no choice but to appreciate that we're in a war whether we wish to be or not. And finally, just the candid discussion of this creates danger for Muslims. As far as I'm concerned, America is an incredibly loving place. It's a loving country. It was very accepting after 9/11. It continues to be accepting, even in the face of this very long war. I live in New York City, as you know, which is a very pluralistic environment. I interface regularly with Muslims. They know I'm Jewish. I'm a proud Jew. I respect their faith. We respect each other. And that's the way America is. America is not a dangerous place for trying to address a very real fear that's perpetrated by people who want us to be afraid. So until we just vaporize those lies, then we're essentially subject time and again to this nonsense of it was workplace violence or it was a video. Our leaders, and in particular the media that takes their cues, they've got to stop lying to us.
Okay.
And that's why they lose credibility.
That's brilliant stuff, fabulous stuff. Are these 5 written down somewhere?
No, but I'll write them down. I'll send them to your producer. You can post them on your site.
We will.
It's almost like a checklist. If you hear it, you know someone's not being straight about the issue.
You know, just on that last point, we had 3 callers yesterday who called us with the same statistics out of the Justice Department. Many more incidents of anti-Semitism than anti-Islam in America today, still. More violence against Jews than against Muslims in this country. So the notion that there's this horrible campaign against Muslims to mistreat them by Americans.
But you know, you don't even need statistics. Why would people want to immigrate to a hateful country?
Of course.
I had a friend who thought it would be funny to offer people a round-trip paid ticket to go to the Palestinian Authority if they wanted to just move there.
Yeah.
And people want to move here. This is a loving country.
Sure.
This is a place where people have freedom. That speaks for itself.
Right.
If you have a neighborhood who's a hateful person, if you have a neighbor who's a hateful person, you can always move away. You're free to go. You are free to find your community. You're free to find your surroundings of people who you can feel comfortable with, and that's part of what makes America great.
Can you deal with my particular pathology here, Doctor? It's a funny locution, I know. You've heard it before. Can you help me, Doc? Which is, the landlord problem. I thought there was some. How about this couple going to the shooting range, and she's in her hijab and a burqa, and they're, firing away on AR-15s. Doesn't that get anybody? Shouldn't somebody make a call when they see that? Doesn't that seem a little odd?
Well, we touched on the suggestion of solutions, and I think that and many other aspects of not only this discussion but other discussions are the byproducts of us being essentially neutered into not communicating to responsible authorities something that may be a matter of risk of public safety. And this is not only, and yet at the same time, people have to be conditioned to communicate for law enforcement. That's the magic of John Walsh in America's Most Wanted. If we took, and this isn't on my list of solutions that I'm going to suggest, speak in a little while, but this is, I'll add this as item 15. If we took the same attitude that John Walsh has cultivated in Americans, that if you see something, say something. If you see something suspicious, if you can contribute to an unsolved crime, that's far more important than forensic science evidence. If people have a natural vigilance about things that don't add up, then plots will be interrupted. And if there's nothing to see here, well, then there's nothing to see here. Move on. And so nothing will extend beyond just a little bit of questioning. And as a matter of public safety, we should all be willing to tolerate that. The idea of, hey, what's your business here? What's your business here?
Right.
And it should be. I have no problem with someone asking me that question. And I can't imagine that Muslim Americans, if they confront the same questions as somebody who says, hey, what's your business here? Can you explain? Would appreciate that it's just a law enforcement officer trying to keep our community safe. Right. Certainly many black Americans who have a problem with law enforcement, they want law enforcement to be in their neighborhoods.
Sure.
They don't want an aggressive law enforcement beating their children and being harsh, but they want people probing and following up on suspicious activity. Right. Otherwise, you have chaos.
Let's pause there. We'll come back with the man is Dr. Michael Welner, chairman of the Forensic Panel, one of America's leading forensic psychiatrists. We'll be back. Morning in America. Welcome back. Dr. Welner, Michael Welner, chairman of the Forensic Panel, one of America's leading forensic psychiatrists. And for those of you who've been listening, off air, I thanked Dr. Welner. I said, Doc, I am feeling better already for his insight and wisdom. All right, you told us the five of the things we need to change. Let's get to the sort of practical solutions. What can we do about getting our heads straight and thinking clearly and acting clearly in regard to this situation?
There are a number of practical points that can be done. First of all, the paradigm of political correctness absolutely needs to be flipped, and it's one of the reasons why I gave a nod to Trump. It's not a matter of our suppression of Islamophobia. We have every reason to be afraid, but it's about American Islam's zeal to reassert its loyalty to the flag. And then what we have to do at our end is we've got to brand America and what it has done for the Muslim world and for Islam. The United States saved Bosnian Muslims. The United States helped to rebuild Lebanon. The United States invested millions of dollars after the tsunami to reintegrate families, to save communities, to rebuild so much of South Asia. The United States rebuilt Iraq. The United States saved Kuwait. We have done so much for the Muslim world. Yeah. Promoting Muslim thinking that is loyal to America first. And first, you've got to end the influence of CAIR, CAIR, and these Muslim Brotherhood affiliates. And I mean, how are you going to do that when you have Muslim Brotherhood royalty, essentially, that's Hillary Clinton's first lieutenant? That's not going to happen. Yeah. And yet you have organizations like the American Islam Forum for Democracy, and Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, who's a medical colleague, who is a very outspoken reformer, a very proud Muslim, who was a lieutenant colonel of the United States Navy. I mean, This guy should be a household name, not the clock boy. Seriously.
Right.
But we have to pressure mosques and parental and family responsibility. When something happens with someone affiliated with a mosque, we can take a cue for what happens in the neighborhoods in Queens and Brooklyn that you grew up in where the mob operates, or down by the border in Mexico. You know what the drug dealers do, what the cartels do when some knucklehead small-time dealer does something like shoot a cop?
Yes.
They go after him.
Yes.
You know why? Because it's bad for business. They don't want trouble in the neighborhood. And until the American Muslim community takes that attitude to say, you know something, we don't want you coming in here and disrupting our harmony. Get out with your radical ideas. Get out. We would need to deport them. Their own peers would support them. And that kind of thinking has to be promoted for people to take responsibility, that parents need to be aware when their kids are being recruited into ISIS and they have to keep the poison away. We have to financially support Muslim institutions, their efforts to root out terrorism from within their communities, and we have to use at our end, we have to use what we have going for us. Humor to self-regulate. If there can be a Book of Mormon, which is a hit on Broadway, why can't we have a Book of Islam?
Oh.
Why can't we have a thriving Charlie Hebdo in this country? Yeah. A religion that laughs at itself, reforms its intolerance from within. We have to retake the campuses from rejectionist Islam, because this is all about the young people. And we've got to retake the prisons, because that's where angry, violent wannabes are being primed, and then they go into the community, and they don't need to come from somewhere else. And then we've got to take the money out of this. We've got to ban investment by countries promoting radical Islam for media campaigns and academic institutions. The reason you've got so many intellectually elite who seem to be so wrong-headed is because you've got institutions like Yale, like Harvard, every other institution that take dirty money.
Yeah.
You've got institutions that if Hitler came in here and wanted to start a Department of German Studies and gave them $5 million, they would take it and they wouldn't ask questions. And in our end, we have to end American backdoor investment in terrorism. When you fund Hamas and you fund the Muslim Brotherhood, and you can't oppose ISIS, you have no moral authority because they end up collaborating. You run guns to Al-Qaeda or affiliates in Libya. Where's the moral authority?
Okay, I need to interrupt. Sorry, we're out of time. You can stay another bit of a part of a segment, can't you? You're on a great roll here. We don't want you to stop.
Sure, we have a few more, and then we can perhaps leap off. But yes,
great.
I'm happy to stay.
Hang on. You're right. You're so right. I mean, Harvard, I remember early on in 2002, 3, Harvard with the Bin Laden Center, but no ROTC. No ROTC, but a Bin Laden Center. Yeah. All right, we'll be back, Dr. Welner, with us. Stay with us. Dr. Michael Welner stays with us. We're running through his list of things to do. I want to insert something in here if you can handle it. You already mentioned it. You said young people. I'll ask Chris to do it because we were talking just before you came on. Go ahead, Chris, quickly.
Yeah, we were talking about having conversations about surveillance and talking about people that may raise red flags. And I just imagine my generation is so non-judgmental that if you told a group of millennials, hey, we need you to watch out for people, suspicious people in Islamic garb doing the XYZ, they might say, who am I to judge? What, I don't judge anyone.
Sound familiar?
Live and let live.
Sound familiar, Dr. Welner?
Yeah, but I'll bet you they don't think that way in San Bernardino anymore. And that's the point. If you take these events and people internalize it with the idea that this could happen here, then they can feel it personally. Whatever the millennials' perspective, we were certainly a non-wartime nation in 9/11. And after 9/11, before we were told not to think angry thoughts because then we might become hateful people, you better believe New York was an extremely vigilant place, and many places were. And I think that these events instill a natural sense of caution.
Wait a second.
Only the government can suppress.
Wait a second. I want to challenge you there because, one of these things about, maybe challenge you, one of these things about Islam that's interesting is, they remember, they're still ticked about something that happened 800 years ago, right? Battle of Andalusia or whatever. Okay. America, one of the great strengths of America is we forget stuff and move on. One of the great weaknesses of America, we forget stuff and move on. I was talking to a Portland radio station in 2003, referred to 9/11. They said, "Oh yeah, that was that thing on the East Coast." I mean, right?
Yeah, that thing on the East Coast.
I mean, is San Bernardino enough? Is San Bernardino enough? Does this have to happen 2 or 3 more times before we get the point?
It's profound. And let me bring up one other point for Christopher's provocative suggestion about millennials. Look, we had a huge problem with school shootings in the end of the 90s. And these were high school kids who were just so beyond innocent. And the level of vigilance in schools now in response to threats is just off the charts compared to the way it used to be because people can appreciate that folks who say things and who appear to be up to something, well, then maybe they just are up to something.
Fair point. Go ahead. We didn't want you to break your momentum. We'll do that another time.
No worries. Not at all. I wanted to get back to a point that I touched on briefly about the importance of banning investment, and I talked about institutions. I'll tell you, one of the other problems of the American dream is that it is so accessible to be bought and sold, and it is absolutely my contention that people whose comments, educated, elected officials, and people who are candidates running for office, I appreciate, and I've listened to some of your guests, Tom Jocelyn, who I have enormous respect for, Senator Cotton, and they talk about the president ideologically and where he's at. I don't think the president may be necessarily that bright a person because I have no access to his intellectual pedigree, which appears to be submerged. But I think at some point you reach a point of such common sense that the only way that he can say what he's saying, you have to ask what money's behind it. When Hillary Clinton is getting hundreds of billions of dollars funneled into the Clinton Global Initiative, and she says that something's a video, and you have to wonder, what's the money behind this? And so I think that we absolutely need to come up with a system to ban investment by countries that promote radical Islam from media campaigns and academic institutions. Okay. Al Gore sold his network to Al Jazeera.
I know.
Seriously?
Okay, right.
We're going to have Al Jazeera broadcasting from the United States?
Right.
And moving on from that, we look, you've got enough watchdog organizations that can illuminate the contributions to political candidates and to media and make these entities as radioactive as the KKK. Can you imagine anybody saying, "Oh, I got $100,000 from the KKK"? Okay. Unthinkable.
Yeah.
Why is it not equally unthinkable when one is exposed for getting huge sums from Islamists who essentially want to destroy our entire society, including people of all colors, if they don't fall in line?
We don't want to abuse our privilege here with you time-wise, but we got to take one call. Tim in Louisville, not that you're necessarily expert in this, but it's a great question. Go ahead, Tim.
Good morning, Bill, and good morning to your guest. This is wonderful. I am not a Trump fan at all, okay? But people are wondering why what he just said resonates. And here are some observations that I have that I think are true, but for sure I cannot prove in any way, shape, or form. Have you ever heard of any mosque in this country coming out and overtly saying, we summarily reject Sharia and think that it is a relic of the past and no longer applies moving forward? Have you ever heard any mosque come out and say, we reject the concept of militant jihad moving forward? None of them have done this, and everybody who goes into these mosques, they pray in Arabic, they are preached to in Arabic, and the people in this country know that something's going on there that they don't understand, and every now and then these guys come out and shoot at people.
Okay. Thanks, Tim. Doc?
Well, quickly, it's sad that we don't hear about people who do the right thing. But, for example, Imam Nidal al-Sayed is the imam from East Texas and Beaumont, Texas. And he quite publicly actually came out and said, I think what Trump said was right. Trump's not against American Muslims. He's against Muslim immigrants. We got to not be emotional. We're Americans first, and we need peace first. And I mean, that must have taken tremendous courage for somebody of his stature.
Yeah.
And Clock Boy's getting invited to the White House, not this imam. The face of Islam that wants to join the American fabric is being submerged by the radical agenda of Caire and Muslim Brotherhood, who basically have favor with the elected officials, and they drown out this criticism. And to that point, there are other factors also. We have a tremendous amount of Arabic intelligence available to us. I don't think your listeners are aware of the indigenous discrimination within the State Department, I should say anti-Semitism within the State Department and the intelligence agencies, who refuse to use even voluntary help available to them from Jewish refugees of Arab countries who speak Arab fluently. What do you think the Israelis do? The Israelis penetrate the mosques with people who can masquerade as Muslims, who speak fluent Arabic. Otherwise, Israel would be an absolute mess. There is no reason that we cannot learn from the Israelis, who respect their Arab population, where people practice freely, and the troublemakers get rooted out. And so I think there's absolutely, your caller is right about how we can advance the idea of security within the mosques, and we should use and encourage the imams, and we should put them up on a pedestal who really want to refine the American Islam as distinct from one that doesn't want to get along.
Great. We respect you and appreciate you so much. We're going to let you go. We don't respect your time as well. Thank you, Dr. Welner.
Well, thank you very much for this dialogue, and I appreciate your listeners joining.
Yeah, it's the best audience in radio, and sometimes matched by the guests, as in your case. Send us those 5 points, and we'll have them everywhere. Thank you very much.
Very good. All the best. Have a great day.
Okay. Thank you. really something. Guy really lays it out, and he gets it. Boy, I mean, I wonder if, all the people who are just out condemning Trump heard what he said. What were the words he used? He said, I want to give credit to Trump here, identifying this. How many callers have we had who have said, I'm not a Trump fan, but I'm not a Trump fan, but very popular locution.